President-elect Joe Biden's win has been certified in the state of Georgia. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger made the announcement on Friday after election officials completed a hand recount of the state's votes.
Close elections sow distrust. People feel their side was cheated. We saw this from the Democrats in 2018, and we see this from Republicans today. Working as an engineer throughout my life, I lived by the motto that numbers don't lie. As Secretary of State, I believe that the numbers that we have presented today are correct. The numbers reflect the verdict of the people, not a decision by the Secretary of State's office or of courts or of either campaigns.
Meanwhile, Georgia will host 2 Senate runoff elections in January. Those contests will determine which party controls the Senate. Republican incumbent Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler are facing off against Democratic challengers Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. For more on this, let's bring in Adam Murphy. He's an investigative reporter with our CBS affiliate, WGCL, and joins us now from Atlanta. Thanks for being here. Now that the results have been certified in Georgia, the Trump campaign has 2 days to request another recount. Is that something that we can expect? And realistically, what could come from that, given that the state has already completed a hand recount as required by law?
Well, the Trump campaign requesting a recount is all but done. And like you said, President Trump has 2 business days to get that done. We highly expect that to happen. Then that will be an electronic recount, opposed to what we just did, which was a hand retally of all the votes from Election Day, which lasted a little under a week. But this recount should happen pretty quickly. As I said, it will be all electronic. And of course, at this point in time, a lot of the state officials believe that this probably won't change the margin that Joe Biden has at this point in time, which is a little more than 12,000 vote lead over President Trump here.
Yeah, but Adam, the president continues to tweet factually incorrect things about your state. On Friday, he tweeted, quote, "The governor of Georgia and Secretary of State refused to let us look at signatures, which would expose hundreds of thousands of illegal ballots and give the Republican Party and me, David Perdue, and perhaps Kelly Loeffler a big victory." How have state officials been responding to these claims of illegal ballots?
Well, state officials have adamantly said that there is no fraud in the state of Georgia, and they haven't found any sort of evidence of substantial fraud. There has been a little bit of problems here and there that they've come across, but nothing substantial, they say, that would change or sway things in a different direction. But what I can tell you at this point in time, the president's legal team, led by Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, have made it very clear they are dropping a lawsuit in the state of Georgia, and they are claiming that there are instances of voter fraud. They say they have sworn affidavits under the penalty of perjury that they will present in a court of law. I can tell you some of the things that they pointed out is that they believe, first off, that Republican poll watchers have not been allowed in some cases to watch this audit process. In addition to that, they say they have examples in these affidavits that show double voting, out-of-state voting, as well as votes being changed. But again, we have not seen that. They say that's something that will play out in a court of law, and we'll have to wait and see what that shows when that time comes.
Yeah, we've heard those claims made, but then oftentimes when it gets to court, that evidence just isn't there. Adam, I also want to talk to you, obviously, about the Senate race. That is hugely important to the people in Georgia, but also hugely important now to national politics. The Georgia runoffs in January will ultimately determine which party gains control of the Senate, and that will have major implications for either the Biden administration. Well, in either way, it will have major implications for the incoming Biden administration. Who has the energy right now as Democrats and Republicans are slugging it out for both of your Senate seats?
Well, let me say this first. Obviously, with Joe Biden winning the state of Georgia, this is the first time this has happened since 1992 when Bill Clinton actually won the state. So the dynamics here in the state of Georgia clearly are changing, and it's quite the accomplishment for the Democratic Party to win the presidential race. Some believe this is going to be a very, very interesting runoff because, as you mentioned, you have the incumbents Kelly Loeffler and you have David Perdue. But those races were very tight on Election Day, hence the runoff that we are seeing. This is expected to be the most expensive Senate runoff or races in our nation's history. And you can see why, because it determines the balance of power in Congress. Because if the Democrats are able to find a way to win these two seats, then we have an even tie as far as numbers are concerned in the United States Senate. And then that would leave potentially the vice president, which would be Kamala Harris at this point in time, to actually make that decision, that final tie-breaking decision on things that move through Congress. But Republicans feel good about their chances. We've looked at some hedge fund research, and that shows at this point in time they believe that Republicans will hold at least one of these two seats. Now, we'll have to wait until January 5th to see how it actually plays out. But both Republicans and Democrats are planning big ground games. Republicans had a huge ground game leading up to the general election. Democrats not so much, talking about the pandemic and trying to at least leave some space and not knock on doors and that sort of thing. But we fully expect both Republicans and Democrats to really be very aggressive in this runoff because there's so much on the line.
Yes, well, as you mentioned, Adam, tons of money, more than $125 million have been poured into these Senate races. You said that it looks good that Republicans, and we do know this from in the past, at least in Georgia, that Republican candidates tend to do well in these runoff races. Do you have a sense of which candidates are really fundraising at their best and who's really suffering out there right now?
Well, right now, both are raising money, and a lot of that money is coming from out of state. And, you know, one big warning that came down here by state officials in Georgia, they are warning people not to move to the state of Georgia for a temporary basis to vote in this election. There is some serious concern about that happening, and they've pointed out that if they catch you, it is a felony, 10-year sentence in prison. And they are worried that there are going to be people trying to relocate temporarily here to Georgia so that they can vote in these two runoffs, which are so significant, as we talked about, in the balance of power in the United States Congress. Right now, I think as far as fundraising goes, both sides are doing pretty well, and they will continue to do well, not just with money here locally, but they're going to see a lot of support coming from the outside, which has already happened, millions and millions of dollars to help them in this race. And at this point in time, you would think that the incumbents would have an advantage, especially in a runoff because of turnout. But I think this is a lot different. The landscape is different this time around. People realize what is at stake. So I fully expect there's going to be significant turnout on January 5th.
Adam, that is all fascinating and worth everybody knowing that if you're going to move to Georgia, you better plan on staying for a while. Adam Murphy, thank you.